Hey, Robert, I want you to try my beer. It's an IPA. I made it myself.
IPA? I pee a lot when I drink.
No, it's called India Pale Ale.
Tell me about it.
Well, you can make it yourself.
You can make your own beer?
Believe it or not, you know how you would learn how to do that?
Where?
At Bitter Nesters by one of our Brew Shop 101 classes. It's
Or all grain? Do you have all grain classes?
We have all grain classes too, but if you take the 101 class first, you learn everything you need to brew your own beer. It's $55. It's 2.5 hours, and you leave knowing everything you need to brew beer.
Well, that's a steal.
That is a steal. And if you've ever wanted to learn how to brew, it's a great way to start and then open your own brewery.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing it now.
Well, you're actually working at a brewery.
Oh, so I do know I can make my own beer.
You do know.
I got the premise wrong.
And you make IPAs, right?
IPA.
Great commercial. Did we just advertise something? Welcome to See What You Can Brew, the podcast about homebrewing, community, and everything beer in New York City.
Brought to you by Bitter and Esters in Brooklyn, New York. We are your hosts, Douglas Amport.
And John LaPola.
And I just flew in from Amsterdam, and boy, are my arms tired.
I was going to ask you what you did for Thanksgiving, Doug.
Yeah, so for Thanksgiving, I got to go to Amsterdam. It was very exciting.
That's in Holland, right?
That's in the Netherlands. I don't think Holland is actually the name of the country.
Oh, no?
No,
Okay.
The name of the country is the Netherlands. Holland is, I think, a section of the country, but I didn't look it up, but I saw several signs saying the Netherlands is not Holland.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
So,
all right.
yeah, there's a distinction to be made. I don't know exactly what it is.
I went to Albany.
Oh, that was exciting. How was Albany?
Albany was fine.
Did it snow?
It did not. I got home before the snow, but I went to a couple of breweries in Albany actually. But I want to hear more about your.
Tell me about
thing.
Albany first.
I went to two breweries. I went to Indian Ladder Farms and I went to Fort Orange Brewing.
Ooh,
with
what'd you
my
like there?
brother.
Yeah.
Indian Ladder had a really great cool ship beer, actually a wild beer that I really enjoyed. Really nice spot. Also, just their estate, so they grow everything that they brew there. And then Fort Orange was more traditional styles, I'd say. It was more right in the middle of Albany, and they had some really great beers. Also a nice spot. Like, they're both really good places to hang out for post-Thanksgiving, which we
great.
weren't alone doing that, so that was pretty cool. And then you went to Holland.
Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah.
Did you drink beer in Holland?
I went to Amsterdam. Yeah, I drank a lot of beer in Holland.
Not Holland.
I drank a lot of beer in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And we had a lot of fun. So I didn't get to visit as many breweries as I had wanted to. There are several options. And we didn't really get outside the city very much. There were too many things to do. We went to a lot of museums, saw a lot of art. I saw all the Rembrandts. I saw a bunch of Picassos, Van Gogh, Telephone. So I went to two breweries. In Amsterdam.
One of them fairly famous.
Called Heineken.
Heard of them.
The Heineken Brewery, where they don't brew any beer there, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah, it was probably... No, I haven't been on a brewery tour at a big brewery in a long time, not since I was about 19. I went on the Coors Brewery tour last. That was pretty interesting. But lots of craft brewery tours, which are very fun. But the Heineken Brewery tour was just a tourist trappy sort of piece of shit. Yeah, the one interesting...
Tell me what you really think.
Heineken's never been my favorite beer, but I've always heard it's better in Amsterdam. So I went to fucking Amsterdam and I wanted to try the Heineken to see if it was better. It wasn't skunked.
That was
better.
one.
That was definitely better. Yeah. But it still tasted like piss water. I mean, it was just unskunked piss water.
Really?
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. I did not enjoy it terribly much.
Did you have it at the Heineken Experience?
I had it at the Heineken Experience. You know, you got 2 beers at the end of it.
That's
But the tour was, you saw nothing was in operation. The only cool part was the big boilers, the big, whatchamacallit, copper boiling
kettles?
Kettles and lauter tons and all that.
But they weren't in operation?
But they weren't in operation.
Were they once?
They had they had a video inside of them that sort of showed what might have happened, but it was more like a designer's like a web designer or a graphic designer's interpretation of the visual experience of brewing beer. So it was like little circles for the hops and the yeast. There was no actual pictures of grain or yeast or brewing happening. And And then at the very end, you walked into this magical box that opened up. It was really, really cool. It was like a Disneyland ride. And you walked in, and you were supposed to have the experience of being a beer, right? And so it started off with like, you're at the bottom of a mash tun, and the water pours in, and that was pretty cool, actually.
Weird.
And the water pours in, and then they pour grain on you, and it sort of mashes all in there, and then they boil it, and then suddenly, like, you started seeing stars, and then the hops, like, fields started flying through, like
is that what happened?
Spaceships. Yeah, it was really neat.
In
really
beer
neat.
brewing, is that how?
That's exactly what happens. Yeah, like Star Wars, but with hops.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
this does sound.
And then the bottling experience was like flying through space on a case of Heineken bottles.
Jeez.
So
it sounds like they said, well, people don't really give a shit about beer brewing, so let's make it something.
I think they said, how can we like remove the experience of actually making beer from our product and make people excited about nothing?
Right.
And so that's what they did for about 45
So next
minutes.
time I have a Heineken, I can think about flying spaceship hops.
I don't know if I will ever drink Heineken again.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad the tour was.
That's pretty interesting because I always think that one of our missions here is to get people actually interested in beer and making beer and how cool that is without spaceships.
Well, yeah, without hops flying through space.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm impressed that we do it at all without hops flying through space.
But now we have to, I guess.
I guess Heineken's doing it. We might as well.
Heineken's doing it.
No, and that's what got me was like I think our whole experience here is about bringing people closer to the process, closer to what they're doing and what their hobbies are, and bringing people together. And this just like it was this abstract experience, and then at the end, the tap room that we drank Heineken, they had two taps. They had Heineken 0%, 0.0, which was interesting, and tasted almost exactly like regular Heineken, which is terrible. And
that's
then they
for the children, I guess.
That's for the alcoholics on the
Okay.
tour, or the people who don't want to drink alcohol. And then the Heineken, the regular Heineken, which was also on tap. But it was like a club scene. It was like loud music, and I had trouble talking to my girlfriend.
Really?
Yeah, it was. And there was nobody, like, you didn't talk to anybody next to you because it was just like crowded, and there was like a beer pouring game that was like a chugging game going on down the way. And it was just like, this is everything I don't like about drinking experiences.
I thought it was going to be really cool. When you told me you were going, I was like, oh, this is going to be some serious history. And
I thought it was going to be really cool.
You're going to
yeah.
get fresh Heineken, and maybe you'll meet a brewmaster or something.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was
like
super
that.
excited. The neatest part was I saw the gold medal that they won at the World's Fair in Paris in like 1837 or something like that. That they still.
Good for them.
It's like Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's still there.
Right.
They're still the one thing they've won.
They won.
They won once, and so that was interesting.
Wow.
But, yeah. So a little disappointing there. The second brewery we went to was, and I'm gonna butcher the name, but it was Thai or something like that. T''IJ. It was in a windmill. It was a small brewery. I got to see the brew house a little bit. It wasn't a proper tour. We just went there for beers, yeah, it was great. It was
Craft brew, just a small craft brewery.
Well, pretty large now. They actually brew. They actually contract brew. It reminds me a little bit of 6 Point. In size, they have a 15 to 20 barrel system there. Was what I'd kind of ballpark, and some big fermenters, like about the same size as Fifth Hammer here in the city, I would say.
But
brewing wise,
they make a lot of beer.
But
off-site.
then they make a lot of beer offsite. They're carried all around Amsterdam. You can't walk into a bar without having a couple bottles on the list of theirs.
Did they have a good range?
They had a pretty good range. Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of Belgian styles. They had one IPA, an American style pale ale, which were both, I think, made with Kent Goldings. They tasted, well, they just tasted
cool.
herbaceous and nice. And I tried both, a little bit of both of those because I wasn't super into European IPAs. Yeah, it wasn't super fruity or anything. It was just kind of like herbaceous IPA. It was nice. And then the Belgians were good. We had a great fruity, delicious triple. Their double was really nice.
They were Belgian styles that they made. So
yeah, the Belgian styles they made.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they had a Bock that was classic. And actually, around Amsterdam, I drank a lot of Bock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there were lots of good Bock options.
I remember in Amsterdam that you could get a lot of beers from Belgium in the bars, and I thought that was
I saw a lot of them, but they were all, it was Duval and Carmel and just
really?
a lot of the things that I could get
The
here
exports,
now.
yep.
Yeah, the exports that I could get here. I didn't really see anything. No West Vleteren on the menu, of course.
No, you know.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, so but I had a lot of good Dutch breweries, beers too. Jopen and Herzog Inn or something. There's a bunch of good breweries from around the area.
Yeah, the
that
Dutch
just
don't make
take
it
the beer.
easy to pronounce anything.
No,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's
Or
as,
just-
as difficult as English is to pronounce.
Right,
But just
yeah,
I've never
just
learned
different.
it. Yeah,
So it sounds like you had a good time overall. You
I had
were
a
only
blast,
there for a couple
yeah.
of days, so that's great.
it was a lot of fun beer, a lot of fun art. So that was pretty cool.
All right.
Now I'm back. We've got stuff going on here, which is pretty
We do.
excited.
We're so happy to have you back too.
Well, I know you are because you were probably working a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I managed to like slip a 3-day vacation into the middle of this season.
Oh,
It's
easily. You
been-
didn't tell me until like the day before. That's how. I found out on the podcast, actually. That's how I found out you were going. It's true. Last
I remember.
podcast.
Yeah.
So that's how.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need to tell me?
Oh, well, let's see. No, nothing big coming. You know, I'm going home for Christmas, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
fine.
we've talked
Okay,
about that.
Good.
All right. But the water class is coming up. That's the
Yeah,
big news
that's
around here.
That
That's
was
what you've
some of
been
the work I was doing. Yeah.
or not working on, as the case may be. Yeah.
Well, right before Thanksgiving, I did a whole bunch of tests. We're going to have a tasting for the water class, so I'm doing some 1-gallon batches to test different salt additions, different acid additions. I tried different acids, trying to maintain pH.
How those experiments go?
I learned a great deal from them, and I they were the type of experiments that made me realize I have to redo the experiments because of the fact that I learned what I need to do. So I am going to do that this week. I'm going to do a couple more experiments and try to make some adjustments that I can get answers that I was looking for. Everything came out a little more acidic than I thought it would. Using just New York municipal water for a pale ale, I did it by itself, thinking that it would have a high pH in the mash, and it was actually 5.2. It was perfect. So I was like, okay, that's cool, but that wasn't what I was expecting.
Why did you get what you
But why did I
wanted?
get
Yeah.
what I got? And I'm going to actually email John Palmer with some results and talk to him about it. And I know what he's going to say to me. He's going to be like, well, you can't predict pH, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I know, you've told me that before. But but I want to get closer. I was off more than I thought I would be.
Okay.
And all my parameters were right. Like all my everything was working right. So we'll see.
We'll see, and eventually, hopefully, you'll see out there in podcast land.
But I still have the beers made. I mean, we'll still be able to taste the beers, and then I'm going to make more beers. So probably for this water class, I'll probably have 18 beers for us to try with all these experiments until your palate just falls out the window. But
that'll be
fine.
fun.
Yeah.
And that's coming up on January 12th,
January
right?
12th. Water experiments are all happening.
Rain or shine. And then on January 5th, I think it is, the week before, we're doing the recipe writing class. David is running his recipe writing class, which is really exciting too. And then we've got one non-store related kind of happening coming up here in the next month or so. Homebrew Alley is happening. If you don't know what Homebrew Alley is, it's New York City Homebrewers Guild, BJCP sanctioned homebrew competition. It's the largest homebrew competition in New York City.
Sure is.
They think they had, how many, do you know how many they had last year?
I think it's the 12th year. They usually have about 750.
Yeah. I think they cap it at 750.
Yeah, let me just make sure about the year. It is the 14th year
Holy cow.
of Homebrew Alley. Wow.
That's a long time.
That's exciting. So they've really been, it's a great competition. I mean, it's the way to find out if you're good. And they get entries from all over the country.
Yeah. Well, it's the way to get feedback, honest, unbiased feedback about your beer. I mean, you can give it to your friends, but to your friends, it's free beer. To a BJCP judge, they're looking for problems.
Right.
Like that's their job.
And you could win prizes.
And you could win prizes
people
from
do.
us, even.
From us,
yeah,
yeah.
we're one of the sponsors. We love sponsoring this event every year. Early registration is open now. And we're going to be a drop-off location. We're going to be a drop-off location starting January 2nd all the way to January 25th. So bring your beer in, and we're happy to make sure it gets entered for you. Do all your paperwork first. We don't do paperwork at the store. Yes, please. They are also looking for judges and stewards. So you can go to homebrewalley.com. Is that what it is?
Yeah, every time I see homebrewalley.com, I see Homebrew Wally.
Homebrewwally.com.
But it's Homebrew Alley. And if you're not a judge, being a steward is a really excellent way to learn more about what the judges actually do. What you're doing is bringing them beer, basically, and taking the beer away from them and pouring beer. But it is if you're interested in more in beer and you're not a judge, stewards are very needed, and it is I don't want to say easy to do, but it doesn't take a lot of knowledge, but you learn a lot.
You do learn a lot. It's actually a lot of fun. I've stewarded long ago before I had children and businesses and trips to Europe. I learned a lot.
Look at you, children, businesses, and trips to Europe.
I feel funny now. But no, I learned a lot. One of the nice things is you sit next to the judges and you bring them, you run the beers for them, and then when they're done tasting the beer, you can taste it most of the time, and often you'll be able to talk about the notes that they're getting on it and really expand your palate. I mean, it's how I first tasted that vegetal kind of DMS flavor in beer. He was like, "Taste this." I'm like, "What do you taste? Kind of broccoli?" I'm like, "Yes, that's DMS."
Cool.
It was pretty interesting.
Train your palate.
Train your palate.
It's going to be held at Wild East Brewing, by the way, which is over in Gowanus. They haven't opened yet, and they're going to open soon. We're very excited about that. But if you are going to Stewart, it's going to be at Wild East, and I have the information here somewhere. Wild East Brewing on February 7th, 8th, and 8th.
February 7th, 8th, and 8th.
Yeah, I guess they're having two different judging sessions on the 8th.
Okay.
So go to homebrewalley.com and you will get your information. You will. So we're going to start off today and end off today with a segment I've been dying to do, and we're going to continue doing, which is called Where Are They Now?
Where are they now?
Which is basically interviews with people who worked here.
Long ago.
Long ago.
Not so long ago.
And where are they now? A lot of people have moved on to breweries and just have really moved through the beer world from starting here as employees.
We've had a lot of fantastic employees.
Great people.
And they're all, I think without exception, great brewers. Really interested in the beer community, really interested in the beer scene. And a lot of them have gone on to become brewers, and a few of them have gone on to open their own breweries or run other people's breweries.
Yep.
And so I think we thought it would be great to talk to them about their experiences, not so much here, a little bit here, but just kind of talk about their process and their pathway to where they are now.
Right, where they started and where they be. Where are they now?
Where are they now? Now. Today's show, we're going to talk with Robert Sherrill.
One of the founding members of the Brewminaries. Now, the thing I like about Robert, because he's a real Cinderella story. That's what I like about Robert. Robert came in here, didn't know how to brew beer, was interested in it, and Douglas talked him into it.
I think his husband probably talked him into it a little more than I did, but yeah, it was. I don't know what to say, honestly.
Yeah,
we talk about
serendipity.
It was serendipity. It was meant to happen.
He came in here. He learned to brew beer. He ended up working here, and now he works at Angel City Brewing in Los Angeles. Like, how the hell did he get there? Mm-hmm. Which is one of the subsidiaries of Sam Adams. Mm-hmm. So it's like a big deal. He's still a pretty active member of the Brooklyn homebrew community, even though he lives in Los Angeles. And so we sat down with him. We had a great talk. I really enjoyed talking with him.
Yeah, me too.
And drinking some of his beer.
Although I had to run out early. That was sad.
Yeah,
you guys drank a lot more beer after I left, didn't you?
We did,
yeah.
As you can tell from the commercial. So here's Robert.
Hi, Robert Sherrill. How are
Robert
you?
Robert Sherrill.
Hi, Doug. Hi, John.
How was your flight?
Actually, it's actually kind of a funny story. I missed my first flight. My husband, Christopher, woke me up with his phone going, "Your flight leaves in an hour." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not making this flight."
What?
I hop in a lift. I call the airline, and they're like, "Well, it's going to be up to the discretion of the countered person if you can get on another flight because you got the cheap flight." And I'm like, "Oh, crap." So I walk up to the counter, and I'm like, "Hi, my flight took off 3 minutes ago. I overslept." And the woman was like, I was wearing this, and the woman behind the counter, Rosa, said, "Do you work for Angel City?" And I was like, Yeah, I'm one of the brewers there. Wow. She's like, "I love that beer. Let's get you on a flight." And like literally, it was like, I got to give them a tour probably next week sometime.
Yeah.
Her and her coworker Anna.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Robert.
No, thanks for having me.
So the reason why we're having you here, besides the fact that you're in town, which
It's
is
because you
awesome,
bring free beer.
it's because you bring free beer. And we were like, how are we going to get Angel City beer unless we actually have Robert
Brewer,
on?
yeah.
I felt that we should do a where are they now sort of segment. People who have worked at Bitter and Esther's or have started their brewing career at Bitter and Esther's, and with you, it's both.
It's definitely
It's
both.
so both.
Doug suckered me into this hobby
I remember the day. Yeah.
seven,
Let's
8
go
years
back.
ago.
Let's go back to that
Let's
day.
go back to that
So
day. I remember the
what
day
exactly
your husband
happened?
walked by without you, and I suckered him into getting you a present first, and then he brought you.
That's hilarious.
And then we chatted with you guys.
Is that how that worked?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I remember this very specifically. This was a long time ago. This is right at the beginning, like 2 years into the store, a year into
Yeah,
the
you
store.
guys have been open at least
been
for a
open.
year.
Yeah,
because I'd seen postcards at coffee shops on
Mm-hmm.
Franklin Avenue.
that was our big marketing push.
Yeah, yeah.
Postcards in
Postcards
coffee
at
shops.
Franklin Avenue. Yeah. I'm going to push this a little closer.
Well, it worked.
It worked, yeah.
yeah.
And then you guys came by.
Yeah, I just I was working in theater at the time, and I really wanted to pick up a hobby. I cooked a lot at home, and it was just sort of another extension of cooking. Plus, at the end of the day, there's beer.
Now, you weren't much of a beer drinker at the time, were you? Did you?
No. I didn't really know anything about craft beer, quite honestly. A lot of people when they come into beer, they have either gone to Europe and had really delicious beer that they couldn't get here. I mean, that all has changed, but
That's pretty much my story.
yeah, at the time, that was a pretty common story. Is that I had really great beer, I couldn't get it here, so I decided to make it myself. For me, I just wanted to pick up a new hobby. I have a long history of just picking up random hobbies. I knit, I crochet. I taught myself how to cross stitch recently.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was just a hobby that I wanted to pick up, and it sort of changed the trajectory of my life in a way.
In a way.
Yeah, in a way.
So let's start with you. Start homebrewing. What was your first beer?
It was Kev's Rugged Good Looks Irish Red Ale out of the book here.
Still available.
Yeah, still available. It's a good beer. It's a really good beer. It's it's a solid Irish red ale. And, when I tasted it a month later, it was probably the best tasting beer I'd ever made. I'd ever had.
It certainly was the best tasting beer you ever
Well,
made.
it certainly was. Yeah, it was one of the best beers that I'd ever had, and it just sort of propelled me to my next batch. And by the third batch, I was already doing all grain.
Wow.
Yeah, I just when I pick up a hobby, I just sort of tend to go all in.
Let me see if I can remember now. So you're brewing beer. You're a customer. We become friendly, and you come to the swaps.
Yep.
and you're swapping.
You get a recipe in the book.
I do. Yes.
Right. You got
That
a
was
recipe
pretty
in the book.
Jesus hops the A train.
One of our
It's,
first customer recipes in the book, I think, actually. Yeah.
If not our first, yeah.
Wow.
What was that? What was that for? That was a specific thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the name of it's a take on a title of a Stephen Adly Guirgis play. Stephen is a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, one of the founding members of the company I'd worked for at the time, which is the Labyrinth Theater Company.
But I thought you made that beer for something, and then we took it. Or we just say,
He brought it in, and it was really good. You
And
also
that was
made
it,
it
we
like
said-
8 times.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
sort
I
of
was
the
really trying to
obsessiveness that
perfect
you-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was for a contest or something.
No, I mean, I don't think it's. Maybe have put it into a contest. Maybe the Staten Island.
This is very early. I remember this recipe specifically because Robert made it at least 3 times that I can remember, and probably more that I don't.
Oh,
And it's still available.
At
And I-
least 8 to 10 times,
yeah,
probably.
and you kept making it with 1.1 ounces of Willamette leaf hops.
No. For the record, it was 2.13.
2.13.
Yeah, it was 2.13. Because you guys had packaged some hops, some Willamette hops.
We had a little bit left over.
Yeah,
and I gave it to you, I think.
Yeah, it was, but it was in a package,
Yeah.
so it was labeled, and so I had to, consistency. And then, I don't know, it was a few years ago. I came in and you were adjusting the hops on some beer that you were making, and you were trying to get the IBUs precise, and I was like, none of that shit matters, right, Doug?
There it is.
Yeah, I know.
Now, I think the next thing that kind of propelled you a little bit, and correct me if my timeline's wrong, is when we had Charlie Papazian here for the first time. His publicist said he'll try 3 beers.
Right.
We don't want it. He's coming to the swap. We won't try every single beer. He'll try 3 beers. So we had a little contest, and we picked. I think we picked 3 beers.
Yeah, that was Will Reeder had a beer.
Right. Sherry,
and
I think, had one.
Sherry had one. I don't think Sherry's was in like the top 3.
No.
It was in like the top 6, and then it was, I could be wrong. But there was also, it was a professional brewer whose name I can't remember. He worked at Kelso, I believe, at the time. So those were the 3 beers.
So Charlie comes in,
Yeah.
and the place is packed, and he tries the 3 beers.
Yep.
And you win with a Pilsner, right?
Yeah, and it was actually my first Pilsner. I had recently gotten temperature controls of the chest freezer so I could actually lager. First thing I made was California Common, which was actually the first beer I ever served Heather McReynolds.
Oh, nice. I just saw her the other day.
Yeah, I saw her last night at the Last Beer Geek Trivia. And then the second beer I made was a Pilsner. And you guys don't know this, but I did a little research before, and I found out that it was Charlie's favorite style.
Oh, good. Hey, good thinking. No, there's nothing wrong with
That's
that.
smart.
So that's what I made.
Now, you weren't working here yet, right?
No.
All right. So you win,
Wait.
and I remember you very...
For the record, I have to just say it. Charlie Papazian came and tried all the beers.
Yeah,
about to
all
say
the
Yeah,
beers.
he came and
that
tried
was so
every
great.
single beer that
I
was
remember
offered to him. He was great. Yeah,
he
was
had
blast.
like a publicist with him, and she was like, only 3 beers.
Yeah.
And then Charlie's got to leave. And then Charlie tried every single beer.
And hung out for like 3
spoke
hours.
to everybody.
Yeah.
And she finally came to me and said,
We have to
go. He has a flight at 6 in the morning. And I was like, and Charlie's like, he was right. It was just so great. And everybody, this place
He
was
was so
fucking
awesome.
packed. People were just through the roof. That was
that
one of my
sort of
favorite
like
things.
the first big event for you guys?
It was one of the very first
It was,
big events.
Yeah, it was. I think actually John Palmer was here
no,
before
I think
that.
the first big event. No, Palmer was after.
He did. He was here twice. John.
Yeah. For like bringing in like an author or bringing in like a big name in homebrew. That
Yeah,
was,
well,
I think
that
that was
was-
probably
Yeah.
your first.
This was our
It was
first
the big one, yeah.
biggest name. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
It was such.
and he's a pretty big guy.
He's a
Yeah.
big guy, and he's just so gracious. That was the nice thing. He still loves this shit.
Yeah.
You know, and when you meet him and you talk to him, he's never like, ugh. He's like, he's just such a great person. But that was a big kick for you, right? Like you.
Oh,
were,
absolutely.
I remember you were. Really
I mean, I
like,
still get a
wow.
little mileage out of it. My
No
coworker Simon used to work for Carl Strauss. And they were named in 2016 when he was there, like medium-sized brewery of the year. And he at work, he was showing me his picture of like him with Charlie Papazian with the medal around his neck.
Right.
And then a few weeks later, he was over at my apartment, and I just tossed the book that's autographed to him. I was like, just read that title page.
Now that actually brings it back when you mentioned the chest freezer. There's a story about you and Chris that I always liked about how you got that chest freezer in your apartment.
He was sleeping.
Chris is
my husband. Yeah. He was sleeping because at the time I was working in theater and I had like office hours. I mean, they extended late into the evening, but office hours I had to be in around 10. Chris works in restaurants, and so he wasn't having to be at work until the afternoon. So he would sleep in, and I would leave in the morning. And he was half asleep, and I said, "Hey, Chris, I think I'm gonna turn the living room into a brewery." And he just said, "Okay." and I was like, really? Because I thought I was gonna get some pushback on this. Like, I think Robbie Crafton was like, he's never gonna go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, did you just say okay? And he's like, do I have a choice? And I was like, not really. He's like, then it's okay.
Which is better than if I don't have a choice, it's not okay.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm going to fight back. And then the next morning he was like, what?
No. He doesn't even really drink beer too. That's
Right,
what's funny.
right. So, all right. So now we've got you up to conning Chris.
Yeah.
Winning the Charlie medal, basically. And then when did we hire you, and how did that happen? Because Doug does the hiring, so one day, this happens to me all the time. I'm like, hi, and I work here. I'm like, you do? Okay.
The season ended at the Labyrinth, and it was just a good time for me to just break free from theater.
You've been wanting to do that.
Yeah. I like I said, like when I came in here trying to pick up a new hobby, and it changed my life. It really kind of changed my life in that the energy and the time that I would spend going to shows or going, studying theater and like figuring out who the next big actor is going to be was spent figuring out, what does this grain do? How does this hop react? You know, and one of my interns actually turned to me one day and she's like, you really like beer, don't you? And I was like, I like thinking about it. I like reading about it. I like talking about it. I like everything about it.
Drinking
it. Yeah. And it wasn't just the beer itself. It was this community. And it was specifically it's you guys. Like, it's the heart of the community is right here in this building.
Thank you.
And I had a bunch of friends, a bunch of brand new friends that I never would have had I not walked into this place. Across a whole spectrum, like we've got architects and like water scientists and like other people who work in theater.
Yeah.
Beer brings a really wide spectrum of people together, and I wanted to make more time in my life for that.
And you were one of the founding members of the Brewminaries.
That's true.
That was before you worked here? Was it?
I think I was working here at the time.
You were?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So let's go back to you working here. How'd that happen?
Doug emailed me with the subject line, "So you're unemployed."
Shit.
Well, it was one of those things.
My business partner.
This is always how it happens when people start working, or almost always is they become friends of the store, become my friends, and you were brewing intensely. You were brewing weekly or bi-weekly,
I was
like a
brewing once a
5-gallon
week.
batch.
5-gallon batch.
You were
once a
giving
week.
us all your money as it was.
Yeah, because I had access to it. At one point, I was the highest. I'd spent more money than anybody else in this store that wasn't a professional.
Yeah, and including some of the like larger parties that rented the whole store at various times. Yeah. You were up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just kept coming in, and I was like, oh, Robert knows everything there is to know about beer. He knows everybody who comes in the store. And suddenly you're unemployed because you were sick of your job at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wonder what he's doing.
Want a job? Hey kid, you want a job?
And we needed people. So it just sort of was a good
If I remember
compliment.
correctly, it was very little training with Robert.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about our employees
or
our customers. I'm sorry, is that they're all self-trained. I mean, they know the store, they know where everything is, they know what it's all called by the time they're at Robert's level, especially. You know, had only been brewing for like 2-ish years.
About 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, but you again every week
But
for
like
the last
about 100
year.
batches. In those 2 years.
A silly amount of beer.
So Robert.
So but
Start
then
working here.
Robert became a very valuable member of the staff here, and we loved having him here.
Really? Because you kept telling me that I was your most expendable employee.
That's just a negotiating tactic, Robert.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now that you're no longer working here, I can tell you the truth. Yeah, but you were expendable in the end. You moved on, did great things. But I mean, I think Robert brought a lot to the table here. He had a great beer knowledge. He was very personable, and we love having him around.
And was one of the founding members of the Brewminaries.
Well, and then-
actually brought that community into something even more cohesive than just a swap.
Sure. That was an interesting thing because that, again, came out of the store. Like, it literally did. Like, we were what, the swap team?
The swap team,
Yeah.
the worst.
I think there was a T-shirt made.
There was a team.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, we always had swag. We've been good with that.
That was for an event we were doing. It was a charity event we were doing at the Bell House.
Yeah, it's the Bell House.
And all the different clubs were getting together through Brunity, which is still a thing.
Yeah.
What
did Sherry was like, and what are we? Just the people that like to drink at the store?
Which is a great name.
Yeah.
Then we came up with the swap team, and we put the logo on the back because I wanted it to be like a SWAT team, but it was too small, and everyone was wearing shirts with nothing on the front.
and nobody knew what SWAP stood for,
No,
which
no one knew what
was
SWAP stood for.
swapping wonderful ales periodically.
Periodically, that's what it was. Swapping wonderful ales. The swap was in the.
Yeah, it was in the,
swap,
We hadn't thought it
We
through.
didn't really.
No.
Well, we didn't have that much time, but that was a great event. The Bell House event, I think, was actually a catalyst for the Brewminaries to happen because we had a great showing as the swap team.
We had some great beers there too.
It was the first time the homebrew musicians ever played.
Yep.
It was a really cool day. It was everyone was pouring good beer, all the clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was when it was like, oh, right. I mean, I think it was after that you guys had decided maybe we'll do something.
Yeah, I mean that sort of was the
outside of the
event
store.
that we decided to do it, and honestly, we didn't want to supplant what the swap was, but at the same time, we knew that we had a pretty tight knowledge base, and that if we could really apply and focus that we could, help other people to make better beer. Because that's really the whole point,
Right.
I mean, as much as the Brewminaries is a drinking club, and like probably 15 of them showed up last night at the
I wish I had gone. I was working.
trivia. But the point was, in fact, that was like one of our first. I don't know if it still is, but like that was we stole the line brewing better beer,
Right.
because that's really what we wanted to do. We had a couple of people who were BJCP judges. We had people that had palates, and really knew how to appropriately critique somebody's beer without insulting them, but also with the mindset to make their beer better.
And the interesting thing too is you guys immediately had so much organization. You were so well organized.
That's Sherry and Merlin.
Is that what it is?
I mean,
Yeah,
it really was
right out of the box. Way more organized than we are.
I mean, Alex
store.
and I did events that first year. Alex Kaloff and I did events the first year, and I'm used to producing events and theater, and so it was a natural fit for me. Alex also does events for his day job, or did at the time. I'm not sure what he does right now. And so we all just sort of found our natural place within that group, and then just coalesced what it is that we wanted to actually do. What we didn't understand at the time is how much it was going to grow and how quickly it could have gotten out of hand. Because in that first year, I mean, it sounds small now, but in that first year, we had like 40, 50 members from a group of like 7 of us friends who just wanted to like taste each other's beer. Mm-hmm. And now I believe we're at about 170 members.
Yeah. Yep.
Part of it, and I don't want to toot our own horn, but part of it was we gave you guys a pretty good discount.
Oh yeah, that's. I was. I had to
Brewminaries.
pick up some yeast at a homebrew supply store in California for a pilot batch that I'm doing, and the guy behind the counter was like, "Are you AHA?" I'm like, no, I get a better discount as a Brewminary.
He's a Brewminary. So, working at Bitter Nesters, you're starting the Brewminaries.
Yep.
We're chugging along here, and I get approached by Molly at Copenhagen.
Yep.
And she says, "What do you think of Robert Sherrill as working here?" And I didn't want to lose you.
Yeah.
But I said, I think he would be such a perfect fit. I said, I would be willing to give Robert up. Like, I'm willing to tell you the truth, not like, oh, Robert, the murderer, you mean? I said, he would be perfect.
Yeah.
And they hired someone else.
They did. He lasted like about a week.
About a week.
Yeah.
And then she came to me. She goes, "Robert, do you think?" I was like, I remember saying yes a week ago, and I'm still saying yes. And you started doing dual work. You worked here and there.
And that lasted for about a month.
I remember one day you had to do something at Copenhagen while you were working here, and I was like, "Go do it." And then you came back and you looked at me, and I was like, "Right, it's not working out, is it?" And you were like, "No, I'm gonna do Copenhagen." And I was like, "Yeah, great, wonderful."
Yeah, and I actually put in a notice and like gave you guys some time. And my last shift was the day after our anniversary party. And I did not show up to my last shift here.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
I don't know.
I woke
the
up.
Brewminaries anniversary party?
No, the Copenhagen anniversary party.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the first collaboration we did with Greenpoint. Mm-hmm. It was that.
Oh, I was there.
You were there. Yeah. I woke up at like 12:30 and I had to be there at 11:30.
I think I remember that now.
I texted you and you were like, "You're fine, Robert.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Stay home."
Yeah, stay home.
And by the way, in case you don't know what Copenhagen is a beer bar. That's a
beer bar and
2 blocks away from us.
and a bottle shop.
And a bottle shop.
And a garden.
And they're considered one of the best, the top 200 in the country. In Draft Magazine, they
top 100.
Top 100?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. In the whole country?
Yeah. Six bars were chosen in New York City.
Yeah. Well, New York's got a great beer community here as far as craft beer and breweries.
Yeah, but that's...
And that one homebrew shop. But it's such a wonderful place, Copenhagen. If any of you are not in Brooklyn, you come to Brooklyn, come visit Bitter Nesters, and then we always send people over to Copenhagen because it's just really, really great vibe and really good beer.
Yeah.
So you worked at Copenhagen?
Yeah.
For how long?
I did 2 years there.
And were you working at breweries at that point also?
No. I mean, that job was sort of, I joke, but it's not really a joke. I was hungover for 2 years straight. So I didn't really have the energy to focus on doing anything else.
You were the beer buyer.
Yeah, I was the beer buyer. It was a lot of drinking.
Such a great list.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was good. You would go and say, "What's good?" And you'd be like, "It's all good."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You're right."
Oh,
it's all good.
that's my favorite. Roman would always say, "What's good?" I was like, "It's all good." Or, "What do you suggest?" "I've given you 16 suggestions." And now he does it just to annoy you. Just to annoy me. Yeah.
Of course. One of my favorite things that we did together was the New York City Brewers Pro-Am. What was the actual name of it?
We did it for 3 years. The first year that we did it was Brew Pit. Passion, Inspiration, Technique.
Yep.
And then so what we did was we paired homebrewers with professional brewers. And it sort of evolved over the years, over the 3 years that we did it. But what it ended up being eventually was the pro brewer would invite the home brewer to their brewery or here at the brew on premises and make a beer with them. So they'd collaborate on a recipe together, and then they'd come and they'd brew it, and then the home brewer would also brew a beer that was sort of inspired by that collaboration. And then, a month later, when it was done fermenting, we held an event called the Brewers Pro-Am. I think the New York City Brewers Pro-Am. Jack has a glass, so that's what it's called, right?
And we would have the event at Copenhagen.
Yep. And so the brewer would, the pro brewer would bring that collaboration beer. They would also bring a beer from their brewery that they made separately.
Right.
And the home brewer would bring a beer, and the winner was chosen by audience choice. It was usually pretty overwhelming who won. And we, of the people that won, most of them work in professional beer now. What I really enjoyed about it was that it really married the two communities in a way that was very emblematic of what you guys do here.
It actually opened up a lot of communication between them.
Absolutely.
We knew a lot of the breweries because a lot of them had home brewers working there, but and they all wanted to give back. I mean, KCBC did it one year. Other half did it one year.
Greenpoint did it every year.
Yeah, Greenpoint did it every year. Rockaway.
Bronx Brewery did it.
Bronx Brewery did it, yeah.
Folksbeer did it.
Yep.
I mean, you're just like...
Strong Rope did
down the list of... Strong Rope, yeah. Keg and Lantern did it.
Keg and Lantern did do it, yeah.
If you just it's just go down the list of the breweries that you like drinking at. And these are the places that really saw the value in encouraging the homebrew community.
We stopped doing it, I think, because it was just a lot of work.
It was a
so
lot of work,
yeah.
and we were also asking a lot of the brewers.
Of the breweries. And they were happy to do it, but it's a lot to ask them.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask them because, we weren't paying them.
We weren't paying them. And they were all... The first one, we got a lot more response. The second one, we got response. The third one, it was kind of like, well, we're really busy. And
yeah.
that was a nice thing to see.
It was an actual moment in New York City beer that they weren't blowing us off because they didn't want to do it. Beer had exploded in New York City at that particular moment.
Yeah.
And it was right about when I was working, when I had taken the buyer job at Copenhagen. And so I was there to see that explosion really firsthand. We're talking maybe a year or so after 2 years after Other Half opened, and how that sort of set the trajectory of New York City. But I think everyone was happy to do it. And in fact, at Greenpoint, they didn't even do a pilot batch. They just had the brewer there and made the beer.
Made the full beer, yeah. And
yeah,
that's funny. It was such a good time. It was such a great... I remember every one of those events were just so much fun.
Yeah. I'm curious, you worked here. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people from breweries who come in here, people who were customers of Brewminaries that have gone on to open breweries now. And then you went and worked professionally as a beer buyer for one of the most prestigious beer bars in the city. And then how did that lead you? I mean, you already liked brewing beer. You already liked making homebrew beer. You've brewed on a few professional systems at that point. certain events. How did those kind of connections lead you to your brewery position when you left there and moved on? How did that all work for you? Is that a pertinent question?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly. I was able to really establish connections with people, and for lack of a better way of saying this, like a beer buyer in a position like that has a pretty decent amount of power and influence in the city. I was able to work that into working at a couple of breweries.
Breweries that you poured at Copenhagen, right?
Yeah, I mean, my first professional brewing job was at Keg and Lantern. It was Jeff Lyons, and Jeff. That wasn't because I worked at Copenhagen. That was just because it's Jeff.
Because Jeff, yeah.
Yeah.
They say you start here, then you go to Keg and Lantern, and then you go on to open a brewery.
No,
it
used to be, you did here, and then you were 508 with Chris Kuzma.
Right.
Right. But
or
it's
Kelso,
it's the perfect size for a first brewery job, because you're not making 24 hectoliters. You're making 3.5 barrels. So all of the equipment is the professional equipment, and so you're using pumps, you're using hoses, you're not using a Blickman Boilermaker. It's a pretty substantial amount of beer to make.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's really approachable, because it's only 3.5 barrels. It's not 20 barrels. Like, I dump out 3.5 barrels of beer after we fill barrels now. So Jeff hired me, and I was only working on the weekends there. I was bartending at other places. I was bartending at Strong Rope. I was bartending at Greenpoint Beer and Ale. And then I also, for a brief time, was working at Island to Island as their production manager.
So all 3 breweries. So you were working in
four breweries.
Yeah, you were working at 3 breweries, and you were brewing at 1 brewery. So.
Yeah, in fact, when I left Copenhagen, Brian at Greenpoint reached out and asked me if I'd like a job at Greenpoint. So that sort of thing, those sort of connections were really valuable to me. I did take on a lot of work, but that was because I knew I was moving in like 6 months.
See, I remember this time period because I never saw you.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it. It's like, where's Robert? He's working.
Yeah.
I think every once in a while you kind of...
Well, I'd pop in here if I needed a part,
Yeah.
or a gasket or something.
And you had that ragged look of somebody who had too many jobs.
Yeah, that's true. So I was working at Keg and Lantern basically as a shift brewer. And so my job was to basically go in and mill in and make a beer, pitch the yeast, and come back in a week. And mill in and make a beer
like
and
a home brewer.
pitch the yeast. Yeah, it was actually really fun because I mean, you know how gratifying it is to turn malt into a beer, like... And to be able to do it, I remember the first week that I was there, I would come home and like literally collapse, because the thing about professional brewing that nobody really tells you is that it's not a race; it's a marathon, and you've got to treat it like a marathon. It's athletic. My next door neighbor is a personal trainer. And we leave roughly at the same time in the morning. He always takes the stairs because he's got to like stretch and like warm up. And I've started taking the stairs because
just to warm up for work.
Yeah. I mean, because it's bending, stooping, lifting heavy things. All day.
Yep.
And you can't be really, really hungover because you still have to make a beer. You know, so it's a different life than I was expecting when I went into beer. I was like, I'm just going to be drinking beer all the time. And to be fair, I do. But it's not, it's a factory job. And
that's something I tell people all the time. I'm like, I want to open a brewery. I'm like, you want to open a factory.
Yeah.
And you're going to open a factory that makes beer.
I have a friend who used to live in New York, but lives in LA now. And I met her and her husband and her son out on like a Sunday afternoon for brunch, and her husband's like, yeah, I'm thinking of getting into beer. I'm thinking of like becoming a brewer. And I was like, do you like janitorial work? And he was like, no. I was like, you need to think of something else.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not that like I'm not talking down on it. Like I remember very vividly the moment that it sort of coalesced in my brain that I wanted to be a professional brewer, and that was the day that we did our Rockaway collaboration, the very first
fun.
one.
Yeah.
And I remember when it happened because I was taking the hose. It was after the brew was done. I was taking the hose and I was literally spraying down the wall. And this great line, I just read this book by Steve Hindy called Craft Beer Revolution. Mm-hmm. And there's this great quote from, I think it's the owner of Sierra Nevada.
Ken Grossman?
I didn't know. Then it's the owner of Lagunitas, the original owner, that said, brewing beer is a great thing to do with your life. That just changed everything for me.
That one spark.
That one moment. Yeah. And I remember it as clear as day. I was like, oh, I need to make more time in my life for this.
And you never had the idea of opening a brewery yourself? Or have you been thinking about it recently at all? Or do you even want that? See, that's because you're in the business. You're like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, I just like...
That's the sound I hear when I think about it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would, I'd really love to have a position at a brewery where I'm the head brewer and I'm able to put my fingerprint on a program. What I'm not really interested in doing is everything else, and it's true because at the LA Beer Week,
it's a business, man.
At the LA Beer Week
business.
kickoff, there was a woman who owns, I forget which brewery in LA. I'm still learning the breweries. But they were speaking about what it means to be a brewery owner. And she said, if you don't like 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, don't open a brewery.
Don't open a business.
And for me also, like, because I used to have to run social media for Copenhagen, and I had like my own website, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like I don't, like it's not my strong suit. And I don't want to offend somebody and then be buried at, worst beer blog. Do you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. 1 star.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the fact that you have your own podcast for a long time there.
I did.
And one of the reasons why we have one is because people missed your podcast. And so we said, we're going to take over. What's that?
Oh.
Robert's opening a beer from the brewery that you work at now in Los Angeles.
Yes, I had nothing to do with this beer. This is a strawberry sour beer that we made.
Before your time?
It was, yeah. It was put into barrels in July of 2018.
And the name of the brewery?
Angel City Brewery. This is called Grasping at Strawberries.
Sounds like Bobby wrote that one.
Well, we wanted it to be, it's been aged for like a year and a half in Cabernet barrels. We wanted to do Cabernet Fresa because we did Pinot Fresa, but we couldn't get approval for it. So grasping at strawberries.
Yeah. Wow.
Douglas has to leave in 5 minutes, so do you have any questions? Because I wanted to talk about
delicious.
Angel City.
Yeah, I want to talk about Angel City too.
Okay.
But alas, I have children who need me. This is delicious, Robert.
This is
Thank
great.
you. Thank you for bringing this.
Again, I had nothing to do with
Did you
this.
have anything to do with the other one?
Yes, I made this one. The other one is Faux Snow. It's an IPA that's brewed with mashed potato flakes and spruce.
I saw the Instagram, I think it was on. You were like,
yeah.
make a beer with potatoes.
Make a beer with potatoes, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
What is that like, making a beer with potatoes?
Have you ever tried to brew with glue?
Yeah, we do have that glue porter.
Yeah. So
It's
pretty
much the same
similar.
thing, yeah.
It was like a 5.5 hour runoff.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it got stuck. I was
Nightmare
scraping.
in
I was
Angel
scraping
City.
the bed of that Louder Ton.
They've made
for a
the beer
while.
before?
Yeah, this is an annual release for them.
And is it always this?
Not as bad as it was for me.
No.
Yeah. It's always a pretty long runoff, but I took the record for how long it took.
You did.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Always trying to be the best.
Another record.
Well done. I'm gonna.
I'll keep asking Robert about Angel City.
Robert, you keep asking Robert about all his things. And
We
I'm gonna give him a hug.
say goodbye to Doug as Doug gives Robert a hug.
Bye, everyone.
So you moved to California. You moved to Los Angeles because of Chris, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not because of Chris, but like Chris had an opportunity.
No, pretty much because of Chris. Yeah. I mean, the great thing about not working in theater is that I wasn't tied to New York City in that way anymore.
Right.
And I could do what I do pretty much anywhere.
You were looking to stay in beer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you got a tattoo. You got a Brewminaries tattoo.
I did. Apparently,
that's cool.
People on our Slack channel occasionally joke that if you get a tattoo that your dues, you don't have to pay dues anymore. I'm still paying dues.
Are you really?
Yeah. I mean, granted, I'm getting the satellite member discount.
Right.
But I it's fine. It's fine. It's only $20 a year.
Yeah.
And they mail me my swag. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally worth it.
Yeah. And I still get this, occasionally chime in on somebody's brewing questions on the Slack channel. So.
Yeah, that's cool. And you still get your discount here. If you want to buy anything before you go home.
I don't know that I'll have time to brew while I'm here.
So, all right. So you go to LA with no job, though, right? You were not. There wasn't like, oh, I'm going to work at Angel City, right?
Yeah. It's kind of funny how scary that is in retrospect. In that I moved to a new city. Didn't have a lot of friends. I did know a few people that lived there. Not really a lot of people in beer. But speaking of Heather McReynolds from earlier. Heather McReynolds introduced me to Renee Rubin and Alex Kennedy, who both work at Angel City. And we met for drinks at Gold Star about a year ago. In fact, a year ago this week.
Wow.
Because it was the week before Thanksgiving.
Now, you didn't know you were moving at that point, did you?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
did?
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
the idea of meeting them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way. I think primarily it was Heather was like, listen, I have friends that are in beer in LA.
Right. Here's a contact.
Yeah, at least meet them and like hang out so you have a friend in LA when you get there.
That's wonderful. It's amazing how those things actually work.
Yeah. And so when I met them, Renee was telling me about this program that they have at Angel City, which is an internship program. And they take like a home brewer or somebody who has like brew pub experience, and they train them up on a professional productions, system, which is a 24 hectoliter system. We average about anywhere between 15 to 22 barrels of finished product, depending on like hoppiness and, whatever the batch size is. We have like 20, 40, and 60 barrel fermenters. So we're often doing triple batches of like our more popular stuff. And so when that position became available, I applied for it, interviewed for it with Leighton, who's the head brewer, Leighton Cutler, who actually used to be a customer here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Actually, there's a funny story about that because Leighton used to be a customer here because he used to be a distiller in town. I want to say at Widow Jane. But when he saw Bitter and Esters on my resume, he's like, "Oh, I know those guys."
Wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
And his boss, who just got promoted, who also worked at Angel City, but Angel City is part of the Boston Beer Company.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're under the same umbrella as
Coney Island.
Right. Absolutely. So Eric, who is Leighton's boss, he's our brewmaster, used to work at Coney Island, and he tells me a story. He told me this because I just met him last week. He told me this story. He's like, yeah, I had to go to Bitter and Esters once and get 2 bags of grain. And he was like, I felt so embarrassed that I took off all of my Coney Island stuff. And he was like, and a tall black guy was the guy that was, I was like, that's OVA. And he was like, and OVA's like, what do you want with 2 bags of grain?
Nothing.
Yeah. No, don't worry about it.
I make a lot of homebrew. Homebrewers buy bulk grain. They do.
Yeah,
2 is a lot.
Yeah.
The breweries do that all the time.
I know.
Like, I'm out of this.
I mean, that's how I met.
Coney Island, put your shirt on.
That's how I met like Spencer Grimm.
Right.
He just happened to be in the store picking up stuff.
So how do you like the job? It sounds like you really like it.
It's like I said, it's a marathon, and most days I do. I have invested in Epsom salt
For your feet?
Yeah.
Or for your beer?
No, for my feet. Because I just need a soak at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But it's immensely gratifying.
That's the thing.
You know, like I joke that it's janitorial work and that it's a factory job, but you got to be the kind of person that enjoys taking a hose and spraying a wall. You know, it's a different. It's
Thank
a different
you, Rockaway
pace,
Brewing.
right? It's just a different pace, and I've got really good coworkers, and we have fun.
I know every time I go to California, it's almost like I can feel New York pulling me. Like I could never live there. It's wonderful. I have great friends there. I love it when I'm there, but I would have to be washed of New York. I would have to have like an acid bath to wash me of New York. I'm such a New Yorker. It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought I was gonna die here. You know, like
I'm definitely gonna die here.
Yeah, I mean, like you, I mean, we lucked into a rent-stabilized apartment,
Right.
You know.
No, I don't mean that I'm going to live here and die here. I'm just, when I'm about time to die, it'll probably be here.
Yeah.
Like I could live somewhere else and then I'll come to New York to die.
Oh, gotcha. No, I mean, it had never occurred to me that I would live anywhere else.
Theater.
Yeah.
We're in the place for theater.
Yeah.
And now it's a place for beer, which is amazing. And the amazing thing about that, and I'm going to kiss your ass a little bit, but it's because of people like you.
Oh, stop.
No, it really is. It's because people have had this trajectory where they embraced the beer scene, they supported it, they learned it, they worked in it. I mean, it doesn't work if people don't work in it. It doesn't work if people don't give a shit, right?
Somebody's got to make the beer.
Like everybody could say, I love drinking the beer. You want to make it? Hell no. Then you're not going to make beer. You're going to have macros, right? So it's because of all of our contribution. We've talked about this before. We really do make this happen.
I mean, I think it's that perfect log line from Fifth Hammer. Beer is people.
Yep.
Beer is people.
That's very true.
And for me, personally, it's the people that encourage my trajectory. Beer has the ability to bring us together and reveal to us that we're not so different from each other.
That is just a wonderful way to end this.
I'm really sad I missed the end of that interview. It sounded like you guys were having fun after I left.
We were having fun while you were there, but, you know.
You sounded like you were having a lot of fun.
Yeah. We're just hanging out. It was Robert, you know. I just figured I'm going to talk to Robert. We'll keep the microphone on. So that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it all in the intro, John. I think Robert's story is fantastic. He came in literally knowing nothing, and 3 or 4 years later, he's working at a major brewery in Los Angeles. Change careers.
Yep.
He was the quintessential example of someone who didn't want to keep doing what they were doing. He was good at it. He loved it. He had success in it, and he wanted to move to something else. And he moved to something else with 150% of his effort. Like he went full steam ahead.
Well, that's what it takes also, kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out there and you want to work in this business, you can't do it lightly.
Nope.
You have to kind of really throw yourself in there and do it. And he did, and he had support from his husband, which is great, you know.
Yeah.
And they moved to Los Angeles, right, for
Chris's
career. And Robert was able to pick right up and get a great job. So congratulations, Robert. We miss you here in Brooklyn, and hope to see you next time you're around. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Next time I'm in L.A., which might not be for a while.
I don't think it'll be for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe you can come visit us nearby.
Yeah, we'll meet you in Akron, Ohio. We'll meet you in New Orleans, Robert.
Oh, there we go.
We have to all go to New Orleans and visit Bobby's brewery, so that's great. I'm going to quickly mention Bobby Bendley as a Where Are They Now, even though we didn't get to interview him yet this time. But Bobby Bendley, you all know, is one of the, I don't want to say founders of the Brewminaries, but the inspirations for the Brewminaries.
Definitely one of the mascots.
Yep. He was
Kill Bobby's liver.
He used to call the people that eventually started the Brewminaries the Luminaries, and so that's where they got the name from Brewminaries. Mm-hmm. And it used to be a password we used was "Kill Bobby's liver." Bobby's a great guy from New Orleans who worked here for a little over a year. Mm-hmm. Left here to go work at Other Half. He was a head brewer at Other Half. And he has a great story, and we will definitely interview him soon, but I just want to mention that he opened his brewery. He has his own brewery now in New Orleans, in central New Orleans, called All Relation Beer. It just opened. Check out the website, and if you're down in New Orleans, definitely check out the brewery. I can't wait to go down myself.
Mm-hmm.
And say hello to Bobby.
I'm looking forward to the trip.
Yeah, we should do that road trip pretty soon.
Okay, one sad piece of news that we have to share with everybody, especially with Terry.
Terry, we know this is going to break your heart.
We know this is going to break your heart. We're real sorry. I know we're a week late already, and that's partly because, not partly because, it's entirely because this is the busiest time of the year for us.
We're super busy.
We're super busy. I managed to squeak in a trip to Amsterdam somehow, but other than that, I work all the time. We've got a bunch of things going on, and we're going to have to put the I hate to say it. I don't want to say it.
We have to put the podcast on hold, on hiatus. It was either that or stop drinking beer. I thought we have to do one or the other.
I'm doing both.
Oh, you're right. You are doing both.
Except for Amsterdam. Yeah, I'm not drinking till Christmas. So we
short hiatus, really.
Short, yeah, it's going to be short hiatus. We're going to come back in the new year stronger, better, with more ideas, more energy, because we don't have enough of that. Probably more alcohol and
more interviews, more of the good stuff you like. But yeah, just don't look. We won't be around for about 4 weeks. Right?
Yeah, so delete us. Sure. Don't delete us.
Don't delete us.
Don't delete us, please. We'll be back in a little bit. And with that, we just wanted to share that we will be closed for Christmas and New Year's days as well. We will be open on the eves for both till 6 p.m. That's what we wanted to share with you guys.
Otherwise, the hours will be the same.
Everything's always
12
the
to
same.
8 every day. But we wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we'll see you in January.
See you next year. Bye.
Bye.
And one night they take her and they put her on a giant tire and they blow her through the roof.